I finished 9 books and gave up on a couple during the month of November, so let's talk about them. The first one I finished is Start a Villain by John Scalzi. This is my 4th book, I believe, by the author. He tends to write sci-fi that are quite humorous. Humor might or might not work for you. They tend to be more like dad jokes, which it worked for me, especially in this one because cats, with the cover, they are there for a reason. They're actual characters and they are not killed, which very important in my opinion. The main character is down in his luck, especially financially. He doesn't really know what he's going to do with the rest of his life when he finds out that he is inheriting the money, the business from his uncle who he doesn't really know. And turns out the business is a supervillain business. So he has to deal with the consequences, people trying to unalive him trying to stay alive. And yeah, like I said, cat jokes are also included. Like he finds a kitten and it says, "It knew sucker when it saw one," which I could relate to. I did that with 4 cats, so it happens to the best of us. I would definitely recommend this one. Like I said, it's short. I'm giving it 4 star, like most of the books that I've read by him. I feel like, if anything, I enjoy the cozy parts and the jokey parts more than the action. Like when it's time to save the world, I'm like, it's fun, but I prefer the before. But yes, I would definitely recommend this one, especially again if you're trying to hit your reading goal, you're looking for a short book, because it's only like 200 something pages. 250. It's a really quick read and it was enjoyable. So definitely was something I would recommend. The next one I would not recommend. You're going to see all month it's been up and down. We're embracing the chaos, but the bell jar. Listen, this had been on my shelf for a couple of years and it was one of those books that I expected to give 5-star to. And I tend to do that. I'll leave books on my shelf for years and I'm like, one day I know I'm going to read you and love you. And then when it doesn't happen that way, it hurts. It hurts. I saw this book on so many lists of like must-read kind of book or like feminist books, which like from now on I will be. I can appreciate the depiction, the representation. I wouldn't say it's good representation, but whatever, of mental illness. I can appreciate that it's making, I guess, social commentaries of condition of women and how they didn't have a lot of options for their ambitions. I understand that. The main character won a scholarship. She ends up in New York and, she's doing her thing. The problem is that this is incredibly racist, fatphobic, and apparently homophobic, but I did not get to that part. I ended up putting it down at 150 pages in. I had like less than 80 pages left and I couldn't do it because it was back to back to back, just awful stuff. And like the main character is insufferable. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the problem is that this is autobiographical. Those specific elements I was mentioning are part of her personal journals too. So I failed to see how this is a feminist book. At least it's definitely not intersectional. I will be reading you some quotes because, well, the ones I can, because, again, slur after slur. This is the 3rd racist comment and I'm at page 17, okay? The first 2, I cannot say them out loud. And I feel like the main issue with these is the fact that she, the main character, compares herself negatively to a person of color. Basically, most of those comments. So in this one, for example, "I noticed a big smudgy-eyed Chinese woman staring idiotically into my face. It was only me, of course. I was appalled to see how wrinkled and used up I looked." Page 17, the 3rd one. Like, it's just relentless, one after the other. Yes, I can appreciate the quote with the fig tree. Like, yes, okay, fine. And there's like 1 or 2 more quotes of like being a woman and having to get married and living a life that she doesn't want to. Like, she's thinking like, oh, 15 years of getting A's just for that. Again, I can appreciate that, but you cannot tell me that there aren't other books out there that could serve the same purpose, that could be on those lists of must read instead of this one. I'm just so sick and tired of people looking past. Like, people had told me, oh, it aged badly. I didn't expect it to be this bad. And again, I understand the character is basically the author and she ended her life and her children's life. I get that, but like, really? Really? This is, listen, I can appreciate an unlikable female character. There's one coming, but this is just straight up awful. I'm giving this 1 star. I don't understand the hype. I don't understand what people see in this. And like, I won't be able to help myself when I see it from now on being named and want detailed explanation as to why you love this, because the next book I finish is an American classic, modern classic, The Color Purple. I was told not to listen to that one as an audiobook, but I decided to give it a shot anyway, and I'm glad I did because the way it's written is like journal entries or letters, and it works super well as an audiobook, so I would recommend it. The book is almost 2 separate sections. The first one is her childhood, and definitely trigger warnings for like incest and a bunch of other things, but she's a Black woman growing up in the 1910s-ish, And then the second, well, throughout the rest of the book, you're following letters between these two sisters, and one of them moves to Africa, and they're sending each other letters, so you're following their stories like that. And I was surprised by the positive LGBTQ plus representation. I know this was published in the 80s, but still, I feel like I don't see that many, especially for Black women. And I was just overall more invested in the story than I expected. Sometimes modern classic, you don't necessarily get as emotionally invested, or it's not necessarily one of my main genre, but I ended up really enjoying it. I think I'm gonna give it 3.5. But this was good. I understand the hype. I understand how it survived the test of time. I feel modern classic, that's kind of, I mean, it's still like over 40 years, but still. Have you seen the movie? Is it worth it? Let me know. I feel like it would probably be too hard to stomach, but I'm glad I read this. So I was talking about unlikable main characters. The Dollmakers. This has to be my biggest surprise of the month. I ended up really enjoying this. This is an adult fantasy. I don't know if it's going to be a standalone, a series, companion novels. There's been things that have been said, but this is the first book of the author. There's like 1,000 reviews on Goodreads at the moment. Like, this is not as popular as it needs to be. It did get a shout out by Brandon Sanderson, which is how I found out about it. But the magic system and the world building are so interesting. Basically, there are these monsters that come and attack people, and the only way to fight back is through these dolls that are created by people, and they are magical and they can actually kill them. So the main character, her whole family was killed by these monsters when she was a child, and she spent the next 15 years focused on becoming a doll maker. And the beginning of the book starts when she's passing or attempting to pass this test to become one officially, and things don't go as planned. And because she has spent every minute of every day of her whole life trying to do that, she obviously doesn't react well. And she will be unlikable for most of the book, which I know is a deal breaker for a lot of people, but if you keep that in mind, I feel like it excuses, and it makes just so much sense with her character. Obviously, there will be some character growth at one point. It just takes a while. So you might find it frustrating, but I really enjoyed, again, the world building, the magic system. I enjoyed that the door is definitely open for more, which, please buy this book. I don't say that often, but please do, because I want her to have enough money to write another one, because this was really good. I'm intrigued. The only thing is there's a little bit of romance, a tiny bit, and I didn't care for it, but everything else, yes, please. 4.25, recommend this. This will make it to, I don't know, my most surprising or my best books of the year. Either way, I want you to read this. You deserve this if you don't mind unlikable characters. Because so far, I looked quickly at the reviews. 90% of the reviews that are negative are saying that, which, like, this is good. Read this. The next book also took me by surprise, and it is Here One Moment by Leanne Moriarty. I think I had said I wasn't going to read anything else by her, and I don't usually go for books hoping I'm going to hate them. Like, if I said I wasn't going to read anything else by the author, I usually stand by that. But I had really liked Big Little Lies by her. It was a 5-star. It was my first book by her. Loved it. Then I tried 3 more books, and I couldn't finish any of them. I, like, instantly hated them. One of them I tried to read really hard. Is it 9 Perfect Strangers? I made it like 60% into it. I couldn't do it. She tends to write over and over the same thing in the sense that you usually have a big group of characters, and then it's like a deep character exploration. So it's not action driven. It's not really character driven. It's just, with that said, the premise was so intriguing that I decided to give it a shot, and I'm glad I did. Basically, you have this group of people that are in a plane when this woman gets up and start predicting everyone's death, the year and the cause. So obviously, people might pretend, oh, it's not affecting me, but like when they start dying, of course, people are starting to freak out a little bit. So throughout the story, you're following them, you know, the consequences, a little bit of their background, but mostly the background story of this main female character and what brought her to that moment. And I ended up really enjoying it. Like I said, it's more contemporary than I usually go for, but I would highly recommend it if you have enjoyed most of her books, or at least one of her books, and you're looking for more. So definitely don't expect, you know, sci-fi kind of book. It's definitely contemporary, but I think I'm going to give it 3.5. It's her second best in my opinion, so I would recommend it. Never thought I would say that again about her, but I would. During my read it on Haul the jar was not nice to me. With that said, I did end up reading 2 books that I guess are technically part of my pile of shame. Basically the books that I started but didn't finish. The first one, this is a combined edition by Jane Austen. I'm saying that because the middle story is Lady Susan, which I had already read. And then for this challenge, I ended up reading the first one, which is Sanditon, and then the last one, which is the Watson. For some reason, I had completely forgotten that they were incomplete novels. So I was a little shocked when I got to like chapter 11. I'm like, oh, it's done. 12, sorry. So it's like 100 pages each, and you're just starting to get to know the characters, but it's Jane Austen, and so I was still happy to get to know the characters. This was actually the end for me. I've read everything by her, at least officially. I still just love her in general. I appreciate the humor, again, the characters. Although every female character seems to have the same name, everyone is Elizabeth, Jane, or Emma, which was it the case at the time? Was everyone named the same thing? The only difference is in the first one, there's more of a team of health, which I thought was interesting. I feel like you see that often at the time, women struggling, being sick all the time. And there's a character that really got stuck in my mind that is saying how he lives, Sanditon is basically by the sea. And he's like, oh, I think everyone should spend 6 weeks per year by the sea and they would all be so much healthier, which like, I believe, yeah, I believe you. I would love to test it, but maybe one day. I don't even know how to rate this though, because again, it's two very, very small part of her books. I know that someone ended up writing like a possible ending for one of them, and I know there's been some adaptations, which maybe one day we'll watch it. I know Sanditon, there's like 3 seasons, which is it good? Let me know. But yeah, it's Jane Austen, so I liked it, but like I don't know what to rate this. Like 3, but that sounds harsh, but like the second book was definitely on my pile of shame, and the jar decided I was going to finish Arcanum Unbounded by Brandon Sanderson. This is a short story collection from the Cosmere universe, which I am overwhelmed by it, I'm not gonna lie. But I ended up putting this down. I think I was 400 pages into it, and like 300 pages were left, so I ended up finishing it. And at this point, I feel like it's the second short story collection I've read this year, and I just find them really overwhelming in general because, again, reading them back to back to back is too many stories. I don't have time to really enjoy myself and absorb them, which is probably why I put it down after 400 pages. I didn't think I was going to wait 2.5 years to finish it, but here we are. At least I finished it. But yeah, it was good. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars just because of that. But I'm looking forward to reading more from this universe, which next year? Maybe before the end of the year, but probably next year. So this was good, but yeah, short story collections are just not really my thing. The next 2 books are audiobooks, and this is where, ugh, okay. Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. Whenever I do a new video talking about authors I will never read again, he will be on there. Was he already on here? I don't know. But I did screen record the audiobook because I need you to be able to hear this and just suffer like I did. Because words cannot do it justice. So this is chapter 1, so no spoilers. And at first I think I'm at 1 speed and then I accelerate so you can get, a good earful of it. So
1. Good night, Dado. Good night, Mommy. Mommy and Dado leave my room. I pull the covers up to my chin. Other Mommy comes out of the closet. Hi, I say.
I listened to all of that. All of it. Let me tell you, by the end, I was listening to the audiobook at 2 times the speed because I couldn't stand it. I almost returned it right away, but I realized that the waiting list for the ebook was going to be like a year, and I was really trying to, read a new release. This was a 2024 release, and at this point, I feel like most of the ones I read were awful. I think this year was just not a good year for new books, but I wanted to decide how I was going to feel about him from now on. And again, I will not be reading anything else by her. So story-wise, classic horror story. You have this child who's supposed to be 8. That voice though. And just even the way she was acting. Anyway, so in my head, she was 5, max. And there is this monster or thing in her closet that she calls Other Mommy because she looks like her mom. And it's been, it's haunting her. They start as friends, or before the book starts, they used to be friends, and then, the horror stuff starts happening. And the actual story is fine. I feel like I've heard a lot of people hating it, which it was just kind of already done, to be honest. Nothing was really that new. As an audiobook, there were definitely some moments that were uncomfortable because you're listening to a book. It gets dark really early. I have cats, noises in the house. So there were a few moments I was like, okay, fine. But in general, it just wasn't that good. And then you add the horror that the audiobook is, and like an audiobook can make or break a book, okay? In general, I find them, it's a bell curve, right? Some of them are fantastic. The majority of them are just, good, okay? And then you have the ones that ruin a book. And that voice, anyway, so if you were thinking about reading this book, you totally can, but do not listen to the audiobook. Like, it's a big no for me. So I think I'm gonna give the book 2 stars. Yeah. The last book I did finish was also an audiobook, and it was Annie Bot. And this book was not even on my radar. I saw it for the first time whenever I was doing my Goodreads Choice Award reaction to the nominees. So I was looking at the ones that I was interested in picking up after predicting the ones I thought were going to win and telling you which ones I was going to vote for. And in that moment, I realized that, again, the 2024 releases, I hadn't read that many, and the ones I had read were not that great. But this one was recommended to me, and, like, I will find you and I will block. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Like, when I read the premise, I was like, "Oh, this is not up my alley. Why are people recommending it to me?" But then they were telling me that the ending was so worth it, so I took the risk and I finished it. I don't know why. Again, by the end, I was listening to it at 2.3, like, pushing through, trying to finish it because I was waiting for the moment that would make it worth it. Basically, in a future version of our world, there are these robots that are made, and this man owns this robot, and you do have the trope of like born sexy yesterday, which is a big nope for me. So you have, you know, descriptions of him getting her tuned up, getting bigger boobs, descriptions of her clothes, and obviously all the abuse you can think of. So he was a good guy though in his head because he never actually hit her. He did everything else but didn't hit her. So you get the abuse for like the whole book. Can I tell you spoilers? If you don't want any spoilers, I mean, I'm not going to fully spoil it, but basically, I was waiting for a moment she would get up and kill him. Like, I was waiting for the actual social commentary. Like, there's a little bit, obviously, eventually she grows, you know, she becomes smarter and smarter. And, like, eventually, you know, he's also growing as an abuser. And it's like, oh my God, just mildly abusive. But I kept going because I was told the ending was worth it. And, like, the 1% of the book that is supposed to make up for everything I listened to that I didn't want to subject myself to did not make it worth it. It didn't. So I hated this. This is 100% making it to my worst books of the year. My review on Goodreads is a little excessive. I did say that some books might deserve to be burned. I know, it's excessive, but that's what Goodreads is for. And yeah, I hated literally everything. I'm not opposed to, again, showing these things whenever you're going to make a social commentary, but like there was definitely not enough to compensate. I feel like it was just, again, me subjecting myself to abuse. Just, I know some people feel the same way about some of the books. But like, no, I hated everything and I was not happy by the end. So it just felt like fantasy corn. And I kept pushing through because the author is a woman. So I was hoping that, no. So, yeah, I, no, I am mad that I read this. Like, I shouldn't have, but like, again, I thought the ending, and this is the book that made me hit my reading goal for Goodreads. I think it summarizes 2024. I feel like I didn't read as many favorites as I wanted to, but we're gonna still try to fix that next month because we have one more month to try and read a couple more books. Trying to get maybe a few more favorites before the end of the year videos. We have like 2-3 weeks, so I'm gonna try. But otherwise, I did start a couple books and didn't finish them. The most disappointing one is this one, The Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante. I absolutely love the Neapolitan series, by her all-time favorite, so I wanted to read more by her. And The Lost Daughter is about this woman who goes on a vacation for the first time. Her daughter, you know, finally left the nest. Her husband, they have divorced years ago. And I thought this was going to be about her finding herself, and no. The author in general tends to write about like motherhood and just womanhood in a way that is very raw. This is no exception, and you can see I have like a million post-its. This is definitely impactful, but it's definitely darker and like, she's a mess, okay? I don't think she realizes it yet, but she's a mess. So I'm currently at page 74. And I will eventually finish it. I'm basically halfway through, but yeah, not in November, clearly. So yeah, this is, I don't even know how to talk about this yet. I need to finish it, but I feel like some of her books handle these topics in a way that I absolutely adore. And then, anyway, and then I started more. This is like feminist nonfiction, which I enjoy those, but it's not working for me at the moment. I feel like nonfiction in general has been rough for me lately. Same thing with this one, which is another feminist book, which I also put down like 60 pages in. So yeah, a lot of rough time with nonfiction this November, but it's okay. We're gonna get back to it. I'm going to be doing actually my nonfiction wrap-up that I do every year at this time of the year, reviewing all of the ones that I read during the year, letting you know which ones are worth it. I don't talk about nonfiction that often, like dedicated video, but I know some of you look forward to it, so it's coming. That's pretty much everything I read and gave up on during the month of November, so you can see some low lows, but some fantastic books, okay? By far, my two favorite ones, yeah, the Dollmakers. Again, please buy this. I know that they're currently having a bunch of sales, and a lot of you were saying that it's like $1 or $2 for the ebook. So like, please buy it. And again, Stardew Villain, if you want something quick and fun, I would also recommend that one. So that's it. That was my month of November, all over the place, but we survived. And most importantly, I hit my Goodreads reading goal. So I have a whole month to read whatever, which I was already doing that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I'll put more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, including a video about short books recommendations. So if you're again trying to hit your own reading goals, and I'll put also my December TBR if you want to see what's coming. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.